take a look at the hottest auto launches from this week. A monstrous AMG-powered Mercedes GLC 43 Coupe, first drive review of the Citroen Basalt, and we get dirty with the Yezdi Adventure. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Soini Dutt. It's been a very busy week of auto launches, especially of coupé-SUV, starting with the most awaited Tata Curvv, which is launched at an introductory price of 17.49 lakh rupees ex-showroom for the 45 kilowatt-hour battery option and 21.99 lakh rupees for the top-end 55 kilowatt-hour battery option. It not only undercuts the MG ZS EV at this price point, but also offers 425 km of real-world driving range. Bookings for the Curvv ICE model will be available with 2 petrol and 1 diesel engine on the 12th of August, while the launch is expected on 2nd of September. The Curvv will rival the Citroen Basalt, which has also launched this week. Now, Mercedes too has been busy launching 2 high-end luxury products in the market, starting with the CLE Cabriolet, as well as the Mercedes-AMG GLC 43 Coupe, which is the final coupé-SUV of this week. Rohit thoroughly enjoyed his day with this coupé-SUV. Here's all he had to say about it.
Sedans are still big sellers in the luxury segment, but if you're eyeing a GLC over a C-Class, you're after more practicality. And if it's a GLC AMG on your radar, you're clearly chasing performance as well. And in case you're looking to schedule a test drive and you want to ferry your family, especially one with teenagers in it, then you'd want to know what the boot space is like. The boot space is really good. As you can see, there's also a 40-20-40 split for the seats. That's good too. But you see, you'd also want to know what the headroom is like, because the GLC AMG sold in India is only available at the moment as a coupe.
The headroom? Pretty decent.
That's of course if your teenagers haven't grown unnaturally like the cryptocurrency you wish you had invested in. But if you are single, or if you have tiny kids, or if you've made a ton of money, in that case, you will be more interested in the performance of the GLC AMG. Like the C43 AMG, there is a 4-cylinder engine under the hood, and it has the same tricks too. F1 derived technology, electric exhaust gas turbo, belt-driven starter generator, et al. Yes, 4-cylinder, so unlike your friends who may have the GLC 43, the older one, you'll not be able to flex your arm on the steering wheel and say, I've got a V6 under the hood. But you can smirk and say, I've got over 420 horses. That's more power than the older GLC 43. That's a lot more power than even the BMW X4 M40i.
More than a C43 even.
Yeah, that even. But more importantly, unlike the older V6, this is a one-man, one-engine philosophy, which in simple terms means that there is the autograph of the AMG engineer who lovingly assembled this engine in a Falterbach. Push the starter and this 4-cylinder engine comes to life with a roar. Okay, fine, not a roar, a growl, an angry growl.
Like a Rottweiler with a sore paw.
Yeah, that. But with over 420 PS, 500 Newton meters of torque, it can go from standstill to 100. In under 5 seconds. How quick can your dog run? When you hit the winding roads, you realize that this car is not only about straight line speed. With that AMG tuned suspension, it just hugs these curves, it just hugs the road. There's plenty of grip coming from it.
Like a gecko on a glass window.
But yeah, you get the drift. Especially with that 4MATIC all-wheel drive and over 2/3 of the power going to the rear wheels. It's basically running across corners, attacking corners like a wildcat on Red Bull. Well, I would have said Petronas, but that's not a drink. Formula One geeks, let this slide. Tech geeks, pay attention. This car is packed with gadgets. There's the adaptive cruise control that works smoothly even in our conditions. There's also the adaptive lighting that works really well and looks nice even to the oncoming traffic without dazzling them. There's also a lane keep assist and works quite well on B roads, highways, etc. More attentive than my mother-in-law. And then there is the full color heads-up display, which makes you feel like a fighter jet pilot.
Like Maverick from Top Gun.
No, that's a bit much. The GLC 43 is also more practical than a typical low-slung sports car. Not too many butt-clenching moments in here. And those 21-inch wheels did take a fair bit of pothole beating during our drive, but you gotta be careful with those. These come with staggered tire sizes as well, 235 in the front and 295 at the rear. Now what about the comfort, you may ask? Well, it's still a Mercedes-Benz seat, so while these sports seats are really good while you're driving around winding roads, even when you make a pit stop to the racetrack, etc., they're still Mercedes-Benz seats, so they are pretty comfortable. And at the back, it's not too bad either. Despite the coupe roofline, we already showed you the headroom is quite good. And the space is overall quite nice too, unless of course you're going to try and cram in 3 football players or NBA players back there.
But I play Candy Crush.
Well, people looking in their screen sitting in the back seat, that's going to give them motion sickness. So don't blame the car for it. So what's the verdict on the 2024 Mercedes-AMG GLC 43 Coupe? It's a car that doesn't feel like a compromise. You get the practicality of an SUV, the looks of a coupe, and the performance of a sports car.
Well, it's time to head into our break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we'll tell you all about India's first coupe SUV, the Citroen Basalt. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Now, Citroen India is planning to wow consumers with the newly launched coupe SUV called the Basalt, which will go up against the likes of the Tata Curvv SUV. Now, this is being offered with a 1.2-litre petrol, naturally aspirated, as well as a turbo petrol engine, and will be offered with over 40 safety features. Here's Kranti Sambhav with all the details.
This is the Citroen Basalt. Well, technically this full thing is Basalt, but we're focusing on this part of Basalt because Citroen thinks that this is going to be its USP. A crossover coupe shape, which we don't generally see in the segment, which is ruled by products like Creta, Seltos, Grand Vitara. Creta almost sells around 15,000 units per month, and when you want to compete in that segment, you have to have lots of USPs, lots of features. The package has to be power-packed.
Citroen Basalt's entry is an interesting phenomenon in a segment which is crowded by compact SUVs with similar silhouettes. The coupe shape is unique for Indian customers, but not for long, as both Citroen and Tata Motors have decided to bet on this shape to break the monopoly of Korean and Japanese giants. So relying on the uniqueness of shape isn't going to be enough for this. Having said that, the car has a sleek, distinct and identifiable look from both ends. Coupe-shaped rear is obvious clue, but the front too gets a protruding grille which sets it apart from the existing Citroens.
First thing first, the face. Upper half of this face is very familiar. With the Citroen logo, you have 2 horizontal chrome tip lines, then X-shaped DRLs, plus this new thing, which is the projector LED headlamp. This front grille treatment is different, and with this chrome tipped panels, this looks distinct. This Basalt gets 16-inch alloy wheels, plus the cladding is almost squarish. The wheel arches are not that amplified. You have some panels on the doors, plus rocker panel also gets blacked out treatment. Overall, this feels higher than it is. Actually, the ground clearance is 180 mm. But there are 3 elements which I want to highlight as far as sides of this Basalt is concerned. One is the ORVM, which is powered now, and then you still get this flap handle and keyhole, which makes it look a bit dated. Third thing, which obviously is the signature style or shape, is this sloping roofline, which is heavily raked, and you can see this shape is something which you will identify from a distance. Don't evaluate this car with my height, because this is a segment where bulk or road presence matters. And if we look at the numbers of this car, the Creta, the segment leader, is a bit taller, bit wider, but this has marginally better wheelbase, plus the length as well. So this is longer than Creta. One aspect which Indian customers will definitely love is the luggage space or boot space, which is 470 liters in this Citroen Basalt. And if we again compare it with a segment leader, that's 433, so around 37 liters more. And you can take a look, the bags we are carrying, we have fitted everything, and this still has lots of space. So before I start talking about the interiors or driver seat of Basalt, let's talk about the engine options. You have 1.2 liter naturally aspirated and 1.2 liter turbocharged petrol versions. With the 1.2 naturally aspirated, you get 5-speed manual transmission, and with the turbocharged version, you get 6-speed manual and automatic transmission option. Now let's talk about the driver seat, and first thing which you notice is the new digital display, which looks neat, bit better. I mean, in this segment, we are spoiled now. We are pampered by especially Korean makers and others as well. So in that case, when you compare, this might look a bit smaller, but yeah, this is looking much updated, and this is looking, the graphics, the overall layout is nice. Then you have 10.25 infotainment screen, which is a touch screen, and the layout again is pretty neat, very clean. And we faced some difficulty while connecting our Android Auto, but eventually it worked, and now it is working fine. Then you get new things like climate control buttons and wireless charger. And the transmission, this is the version which we told you about. One is automatic, and you have 2 different manual transmission options. Then you have some extra space to put stuff here and there, and then armrest with some cubby hole. And overall, the seats, they feel comfortable. They look premium. The kind of stitching, the kind of design you have with a mixed fabric and leatherette element, I think they look pretty premium. And even the dash design, which has this dull metallic finish, maybe you can put your pens or something, not enough space for mobile phones. And then you have this glove box. Overall feel is very functional. Some of the elements are premium, but again, not overwhelming, I would say. If you're not a tall passenger like me, then second row is a place which you will like in this Basalt. Why? Because with my height, the headroom is a bit compromised, and otherwise it has good leg space. This seat is adjusted to my driving position. Still, I'm getting decent knee room. Then I have decent space for foot movement. This central panel is a bit protruded, so that might be a bit cumbersome for the third passenger. But otherwise, I think this feels spacious.
As we mentioned earlier, the Basalt gets 2 engine options, 1.2 liter naturally aspirated 82 PS and 115 Nm option. And the other is 1.2 turbo petrol with 110 PS power and peak torque of 190 or 205 Nm depending upon the transmission you choose, 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic. We were driving the turbo version. Citroen Basalt Turbo feels like an eager car, ready to zip. Not till the turbo kicks in though. The lag is evident but doesn't ruin the experience, which could also get some improvement with a smoother throttle response. The car is easy to adapt to, and when you do, it feels like a happy car which you would want to push a bit more. The suspension showed a good balance. It absorbed the bumps with confidence and didn't make the rest of the drive wavy or too soft. It also felt confident around the mild turns and twists of the interior roads of Goa. Overall, the car feels light and yet robust. The drive isn't the best in the segment, but feels adequate and comfortable for both city and highway drive. However, there are a couple of issues which Citroen should work on to make it even better. One is the NVH level, which could bother you if you are accelerating or on a highway speed. Plus, the reverse camera quality could use some extra megapixels, as the coupe shape anyway restricts some of your vision in the IRBM.
Citroen Basalt looks like a good package if you compare it with the products Citroen has in its lineup, but then it is not competing with them. This is competing with products which are dominating the segment from really long time, feature-rich, loaded products with those kind of features which used to be premium at one point in time, but now they're hygiene. And Basalt misses some of those features. Having said that, with its practicality, space, drive, engine options or performance and distinct look, this has a chance, and Citroen needs to expand its network so that customers feel more confident.
Time to head into our final break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we tell you all about the new Yezdi Adventure. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. Now, the new Yezdi Adventure has received a few cosmetic upgrades, revised engine as well as a few tweaks to the cycle to make it a wholesome ADV motorcycle. It has seemed to have worked to an extent. Let's find out how and why.
Now, if you were in the market looking to buy yourself a sub 500cc single cylinder adventure motorcycle, well, a proper off-road motorcycle, well, the Yezdi Adventure wouldn't be on the top of your shopping list, primarily because it did not tick a couple of boxes as far as hardcore off-road adventure motorcycles are concerned. And of course, when Yezdi launched the motorcycle, it did resemble a certain Himalayan 411. It looked like a carbon copy. So the days has changed. The Himalayan has moved on to the 450 and Yezdi have carried out substantial amount of changes, they say, to the internals of this motorcycle and a couple of bits on the externals as well. So is it a complete off-road motorcycle now? You're about to find out. On the design front, Yezdi have executed some subtle but noticeable changes. Well, those big tank rails that were on there before have now shrunken down in size and therefore helped shave off some kgs of the bike's overall weight. The next thing you'll immediately notice is the level of fit and finish, which has clearly been addressed. The paint finish on the metal parts, the curved plastic bits, and even the quality of welds and even the sticker work, well, it all looks way neater than it ever did before. And that's all well and good from the aesthetic perspective, but the main talking point about this updated bike is its updated motor, which Yezdi is calling the Alpha 2 engine. The engine that powers the Yezdi Adventure, now that is the same 334cc single-cylinder liquid-cooled motor that we have seen previously in the Java 350 Classic. Now obviously the displacement is the same, but then the power and torque, well, that has gone up to suit the configuration of this motorcycle. It produces slightly under 30 PS of max power, under 30 Nm of max torque, and the best part about this is that the previous Adventure model, well, it seemed to be lacking in terms of low-end torque because you really had to ring the throttle, get it to above 2500 RPM for that nice juicy torque to kick in. Not anymore, because with this motor, well, that torque is a lot more accessible from lower down the power band. Around 1500 RPM it kicks in nicely, and that really helps you when you're off-road in a sticky situation, or even if you're cruising around the city at low speeds. Before, well, it's not going to stall like before, so that's a real good thing. Yes, even the 6-speed gearbox has been tweaked around with to better cater to your adventurous ambitions and provide slicker shifts all throughout. And we're told that the engine mapping on there has been altered as well to suit each of the first 3 gears for better low-end tractability, and it's all there to be felt. Shifts are a lot smoother and a lot less clunky. Another noticeable difference is the revised exhaust routing, which now sees a more centrally located header, while it was previously located on the side of the engine. And this has in turn resulted in a shorter piping system in the process. Now the coolant reservoir, well, that has been relocated to the rear of the bike near the rear suspension so as not to cut down on the 220 mm of ground clearance. Previously, you would find the Yezdi Adventure a bit of a handful if you were stuck in a tricky situation off-road or while you were stuck in traffic at slow speed, because the bike's clutch lever felt quite heavy and unwieldy. Now Yezdi have addressed this issue in particular by throwing in a slip and assist clutch on there, which makes frequent lever usage more manageable in these very scenarios. Once you get off-road, the sad thing about this is I find it a little too forward set for my liking, because once you actually stand up on the motorcycle, there's not a lot that you actually get to grip in terms of with your heel. So there's this small panel out here which you can see it has borne the brunt of some off-road riding, and although it's a new motorcycle, well, if this part keeps getting scratched, well, it doesn't really look all that nice, and this is just the first day of riding off-road. So this panel I would have changed, but otherwise ergonomically quite sound. Well, Yezdi also have told us that they have changed the texture of the seat, I mean the comfort level of the seat, which I'm not too sure is a good or a bad thing because I've barely had enough time. Have to get around 4 or 5 hours in the saddle to really see if this seat works. Now, the previous iteration of this motorcycle was known to be a comfortable kilometer cruncher rather than a thoroughbred off-road bike. And Yezdi have made some minor adjustments that have turned things around for the better. Now, this motorcycle is priced at around 2,10,000 rupees to 2,20,000 rupees depending on the color scheme you choose. And yes, it still lies in the same ballpark price-wise as Royal Enfield's Scram 411 and the Suzuki V-Storm SX. Now, this is a more complete, I would say, off-road motorcycle. But the sad part is this motorcycle, well, it is the motorcycle that should have been launched a couple of years ago in the first place. Now, it still appears to be slightly dated, but if you're in tune with the entire dynamics and the Yezdi brand, you will fancy this one a lot better than you ever did before.
With that, it's a wrap on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms and you can write to us on Instagram. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye. Many thanks for watching. Drive and ride safe.